Good afternoon, everybody. This is Kurt Capra with today's daily recap. It is Friday, January 27th, and as you can see here, I got a chart of the SPY up, and it was another pretty lackluster day in terms of volatility after yesterday's inside day following two prior sessions up, breaking out of that sideways range. We did get a little bit more weakness today where we actually broke under yesterday's low, but ultimately this is just part of the process. As I said, 2 days up, pretty fluid days at that. It was natural that we were going to see a correction or a pause, and that's what we got yesterday. Got a little bit more today here. You can see, got an hourly chart, and we pulled back a bit here today, came down, tested some support, and we're actually seeing a nice little bottoming tail form here as we are finishing the day out. And basically, this sets the stage for what could be some follow through on Monday. So it'll be very interesting to see, do we move over this 229.20 area, or do we break down below today's low, which opens the door to additional movement lower. But even that being said, right, if we get a little bit more follow through down and maybe even fill the gap, say around 227.90, 228, I mean, all that is a pullback after a breakout. So that still sets up a bullish scenario for the next couple days to weeks. So that the overall trend, the overall bias here needs to be bullish. And I mean, honestly, you look at this weekly chart, and how can you really get too bearish on something that looks like this? Especially because it is Friday. This is your weekly candle breaking out, closing above the top of this range. So based on the current picture, you really can't get bearish given what we are looking at here right now. Next week, maybe things change, it looks different, and you can start to think a little more bearishly, but we're not at that point yet, and there's no sense in thinking in terms of what we may or may not have, right? It doesn't help anyone to think, well, what if this happens? Because I could turn around and say, well, what if it doesn't? Are you going to miss the move? So thinking in terms of what if is really counterproductive overall. So bottom line here, bullish chart on the S&P looks higher. All right. So going across the landscape here, financials, after breaking down, they found support at the 50 MA, held it, bounced up, and now that they're into the top of the range, stalling out a bit. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Question now becomes, do we start to establish a wider range, or are we going to get a little pullback, higher low, and then higher high as we continue to see this advance? Gold in a little bit of a different situation here, where it put in a double top. It's been falling. Right now trying to hold this 20 MA and also just above the 50 MA, as well as some support. But the interesting part of this is the weekly. And you can see here how the weekly has rallied up, and now we're getting a bearish candle closing below last week's low. All right, so that actually is a recipe for continued follow through lower over the next couple weeks, maybe even back down to this prior low if things really start to deteriorate. But we shall again see what happens there. The daily right now is trying to hold support. If it breaks under these recent lows, that's when the door gets open to a move back down towards that 109.50 area. So let's keep that in mind. And if it does start to move up, then this 115.50 level is going to be a major resistance level that, if overcome, certainly starts to change the picture. But I don't, at least based on right now, see that this is going to be easily overcome. So we'll see what happens there. Oil, USO, this one's kind of getting squeezed here between the flat 20 and 50 period moving averages. Right now we're stuck between those two. So we'll see if we get a break higher over these coming days or lower. But the bottom line is this is really just getting squeezed. I mean, there's really no other way to say it than that. So we'll see if there's some resolution one way or the other. But USO, oil in general, has kind of been off the radar, so to speak, the last couple days to weeks. Looking at some individual names, we've got Apple, which cleared above and has been holding above this 120 level after breaking out there on Wednesday. It's just been holding here. So all in all, pretty good based on your weekly chart. Not that bad looking overall. It's clearing above this resistance level, so we'll see if it can continue. And looking at Tesla, this one has had a really nice run up here since holding that 200 MA after crossing above it. And even here pulled back, giving a green candle at this point. And we'll see if it can continue. I mean, I don't love it just based on the rather shallow pullback, a little far from the 20 MA. So it's not my ideal setup. I'd rather see maybe a lower low form before really looking to get involved with something like this. But, buyers do continue to step up, and they certainly have hold of the trend at this point. And also Netflix. Netflix had a nice day today. After going sideways the last week and a half, we closed really strong here today, and we'll see if this sets the stage for some additional follow-through over the coming days and weeks ahead, as it has, as I said, consolidated here for a couple days now, looking poised to continue after the strong earnings gap up that we had last week. So, again, we'll see how that plays out. So overall, things are looking really good. Let me just flip on over to the Dow here. Dow closing above 20K for the week, which is nice to see. And as I mentioned with the S&P, it's just resting here. So we'll see if this is not going to get ready for a move higher maybe next week. Or as I said, even if it pulls back a little bit, that's still going to be okay. So we'll just see how this plays out, take it a day at a time, and realize that the longer-term direction here right now is up. So have a great weekend, everybody. Rest up. Scott will be back with you guys on Monday, and we'll talk to you then.